Okay. So hello everybody. Thank you to be connected today for our doing business in Argentina. Let me introduce Javier Ignacio Fuentes, tax manager at PGK Consultores. So Javier, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Margot. Many thanks. Well, hello everybody in different countries. Now this presentation is referring to Argentina. I will introduce you into the way of doing business in Argentina. This presentation is spin off this presentation in two parts. One is an overview about Argentina, the political situation, how we are divided, how we work internally, which are our principal or main business or area. And then we are going to talk about the main drivers to conduct businesses in Argentina, right? Well, an overview of Argentina. As you know, as you probably know, Argentina is located in the south of America. We limit with Chile in this part, Bolivia in the north, Paraguay, Brazil, and Uruguay. We are very close to them. We have several paths for going in and out of the country, which make commercial operation between countries very easy and not so expensive, except when it's a very cool day with the snow here. This make hard the operation and the transport of goods or something between each country. We are divided into 23 provinces. Yeah, this is each of the provinces, and here we have the autonomous city of Buenos Aires, which works as our federal capital, right? Economically, our country can be divided in several regions according to the different weather we have. The climate here, we have one type of climate here, one here, and another in the south, right? So, for example, you have this northwest of Argentina, which is very warm. The weather is very hard too, high temperatures. In this sector, we have two rivers. This is Mesopotamia, Argentina. Yes, in which some product can be developed here. Yeah, agricultural basically. And here we have the Sierras Pampeanas, yeah, which is very, the product here is from agricultural too, yeah. And you have, I put some pictures about each of one of the sectors in which we are divided. And in the south, which is not very clear in this picture, it's very cool, the weather. So here, for example, are stock breeding, see, more than agricultural, more than the products like crops or something like that. Well, economically, we have mainly these activities, agriculture and stock breeding, which is at the top of the list. Energy and oil and mining, we have a lot of sectors, and part of Argentina, which is very easy to get energy, oil, and mining. It's easy to access to that part. Easy in the way of making the activity, not easy because it's easy to get the places. Then in the third place is the manufacturing industry, tourism, and now science and technology is growing in the country. If you refer to agricultural and stock breeding, the main crops are soybeans, as you can see in this picture, is 42% of all the crops we have, we exploit in the country. Then it's followed by the crops, then wheat and sunflower, and the rest of the crops is in a very short proportion. Referring to energy, oil and mining, this is another activity developed in Argentina. It's not so high, the activity of this energy, oil and mining. Oil, we have a lot of sectors here, as you can see, in which the exploitation, we have a lot of areas here, which there are exploitation of oil, yeah? Here, gas and oil. Here is the area of Acambuco, which is known because of the gas exploitation. And in these two parts, here is, for example, what you have heard about Vaca Muerta, the new exploitation. It is not in full. This is an area which is exploration and trying to get oil from this area. And these are Gulf of San Jorge and the south of the country, which has oil not so hard, but we have companies here exploiting the oil. With respect to upstream and downstream too, right? With respect to the mining areas, we have all our west with mountains and several type of minerals. For example, gold, for example, in this part of Argentina are exploitation of gold, silver, or for example, carbon here in the south. More or less, this is the main activities we have. And this is a growing areas in which we have a lot of companies trying to get more of this product. Well, of course, we are a country in which crops is our best production. Yes, we are known by the crops. Agricultural is something that is the principal exploitation in Argentina, following by energy, oil and mining, including wind energy. And according to our Secretary of Oil and Mining, he said Argentina has reached 571,000 barrels per day, which is 14% more than a year ago. So we are increasing the exploitation. This basically for the area of Vaca Muerta, which is one of the areas that is very new. It covers a very big area under the ground, and it's a very, well, it's very new, very young area, so we have a lot of time to explore that area. Well, I don't know if you want to know something about this economic global context or on this overview of the economic activity of Argentina. If you have one question, just do it at the end or while I am speaking. Well, how we conduct business in Argentina? What do we have to do or set up in Argentina or establish a company? We have to consider three aspects. Yeah, the one is the legal. The second is the social security, which is referring to our people, to the people that work in Argentina for different companies, and of course the tax aspect. With respect to the legal aspect, we have one superintendency of corporation here, and it is located in the different provinces because the provinces have the are entitled of conduct the companies in each region, right? So here in the federal capital, we have the IGJ, General Inspection of Justice, which command the companies that set up in the federal provinces or the city of Buenos Aires, the autonomous city of Buenos Aires. Then if you want to establish a company in the province of Buenos Aires, you have another entity to control this type of company. So if you want to locate it here in the autonomous city of Buenos Aires, you will register the company in the IGJ, see, in the General Inspection of Justice. If not, if you want to establish a company in the province of Buenos Aires, you have to go to register the company in another public entity, right? But located in the province of Buenos Aires, and you will be governed by that law, right? But if you want to, for example, go to the a market share, for example, you have here the Bolsa de Comercio, yeah, which is a market where companies share this this part of the company, the shares, and have the cotization, and these are under the CNV, National Commission of Value, yeah, the cotization of these shares. This is the organism that is controlling the activities of the company here in Argentina. Each company has to submit their financial statement once a year, yeah, at the end of this fiscal year. And this financial statement must be prepared, adjusted by inflation. We have a mechanism to actualize all the figures and the chapters and the balances and income, trying to show that figures in the same currency, as we say. This is what the meaning of adjusted by inflation. Yeah? This is the objective of adjusting financial statement by inflation. To show all the figures in the same at the same moment, right? Which is at the end of each fiscal year. And of course, I have said the National Security Commission regulates companies on stock exchange and markets. Well, with respect to Social Security is what the employer and employee needs to comply with for working in under a dependent company, right? Well, we have different modes of hiring and payment, and the third part is the obligation and taxes you have to comply with the AFIP, as we call here. Go to the registration and dependent working. Registration of dependent worker is something mandatory. You have all the employees that you are going to hire, you need to register it in the Administración Federal de Ingresos Públicos. It's like an IRS in the United States, right? And the employers have to register first as employer, right? Then each employee that is hired have to be registered too in that IRS, right? The fiscal authority. What does it mean? It means that you have to fulfill a tax return in which you, of course, give all the reference to this employee and you are allowed to start working with him according to the way you decide to hire that employee, those employees. Right. Well, which are the modes of hiring and payment? Argentine law establishes very contract modality. The most common one is this two, as I am showing you in this presentation. One is called modality 14. It's a trial period. It's a period in which you try people, let them develop their skills, and it does more or less for 3 months. After that, you decided to keep this employee, okay, you transfer the hiring into indefinite time, as we call. So the model 14, the employee always enter with this modality. And after the 3 months, if you don't say anything about hiring or not, or going with the relationship, it is understood that this employee will be working for this company as indefinite period. So it is forever. Until, of course, they are retirement or when the people decide to be dismissed or die, right? But you have another ways or manner of hiring people, which is for specific activities. For example, you have for agricultural activities, there are several part of the year in which they try to get the crops in, and they hire people for short period of time, 6 months, 2 months, according to the job that they have to do. Of course, this modality has to comply with certain requirements, not so easy too, right? But the most important is this one. The 18%, the 80% of companies use these two modalities of hiring employees. Payments of monthly or periodic payment of the agreed salary, because you agree with the employee which salary are going to pay in a certain period, mostly fixed in monthly basis, in accordance with the regulation that govern this activity, because the activity can be established as monthly payment, journalist, or whatever period, maybe for doing a job, and after that, when it was concluded, you pay to the employee the agreed amount. Not so common. The common one is monthly basis. Okay? Then it is mandatory to pay supplementary annual salary, SAC for us, which is paid twice a year. In June, the one part, and in December, the other one. This SAC is equivalent to an additional wage, monthly wage, an additional monthly salary. That is why most of people say this is the 13th wage. And you pay half of that in June and the rest in December. This is not a bonus, right? This is something established by law So it's not something that the company can decide to, could decide doing or not, or pay or not. This is something that all the companies have to pay. If the employee started working in the company in the year, of course, this salary will be proportional to the time the employee had been working. Then another obligation is to pay the annual vacation, the period of time in which each employee have the right to rest, right? And this is a pay period you have to grant, more or less at the beginning is 14 days, and the time, this time is growing according to the aging of the employee in the company. And it refers to the agreement with each sector. Okay. Do you have any questions about this? No? Okay, go on.
So far, it's very clear, Javier.
Okay,
very clear.
perfectly well. If not, please let me repeat what I am speaking, right? Well, an allocation must be paid and granted also, and according to the amount of days worked in the calendar year. Well, now this aspect, the previous aspect, this one, refers to a labor law. This is what the law established for hiring people. Now we are going to talk about which are the obligations with respect to social security. So this is contributions that all companies and employees have to do for their retirement and the medical cares, as well as the care that one have to, for example, preventing accidents working in the company or during the working time, right? The employee must contribute with this following items. Social Security for retirement. It is the 40% of the wages they earn monthly or periodically. Yeah. This and the medical care is 3% on their wages too. This 17% is withheld by the employer and deposited in the fiscal authority, in the cash of the fiscal authority. Which is this contribution for? Well, Social Security is for the retirement of each employee. Don't mind if this employee work during the working life in different company. At the end of the working life, more or less, we are talking about 65 years old for men and 60 for women. They have the right to collect this retirement from the state. Really? We don't have any more private companies paying retirement. And medical care is more or less the same, but for example, you are included in what we call prepared medicine, right? The 3% is withheld for by the company and deposited at the fiscal authority too, but this money goes then to this medical care company and provides the medicine, hospitalizations, and whatever each employee needs to be healthy, right? And the employer should pay the following items referring to Social Security, the same as the employee, but this is something that have to pay, the employer have to pay 40% or 80% upon the activities. Medical care is 6% instead of 3%. And then this is an employer obligation, which is to pay a fixed amount, a fixed amount for each employee for life insurance, and 0.5% to 3% to an institution called ART, Occupational Risk Insurer. Yeah, what does it mean? If an employee have an accident during the working hours, well, it's mandatory to call this entity to assist these people, this employee for his or her recovery, right? And then if you want, you go to your doctors or to the institution you trust in, and okay, you make assisting by them instead of this ART. But in all the cases, the ART or the occupational risk insurance have to interview in this, not interview, work, right, and do their jobs with these people, caring, checking that each worker recovers, the healthy, they are healthy, also they're in good condition for continuous working, right? And they need to pay income tax too. Unfortunately, income tax is everywhere, and the employee is not the exception. The employer should withhold the amount of income tax applied on wages. It has different ways of preparing the liquidation of income tax, because it has some things different from the rest of tax returns prepared by companies, right? Rates vary from 5% to 35% according to the level of the taxable wages, right? And well, here I didn't translate this part. Special deduction is permitted according to the situation, personal situation of each employee. For example, if they have a wife, if they have children, or medical cares, or they are renting a house for living. Okay, these are a special situation which can be deducted from their taxable basis. And then, of course, they reduce the amount of income tax to pay or to be withheld by the employer. Another tax that the employee, as everybody here in Argentina, if you have the level of access over approximately $60,000, more or less, because the exchange here vary all the day, but more or less $60,000. If you have assets over this amount, you have to pay another tax called personal assets. This is something that each employee or each individual have to pay to our fiscal authority. And they have to submit their own tax return and register in this tax. The rates vary between 0.5 to 1.75% applicable on the local assets. Because if you have assets outside Argentina, the tax rate rise to 0.7 to 2.25% of those foreign assets. Yeah. Now internally is something that everybody challenges here because it's very high, the tax rate for the asset that each one have outside Argentina. Well, third part, tax aspect or corporations. This is what companies have to pay here for working in Argentina, located in Argentina, right? We have three levels of taxation according to the state that are entitled to collect that taxes. The maximum level is national, which is not allowed to collect all type of taxes, right? For example, income tax is not allowed to collect by the national state, right? It was derived from provinces. We call here the origin of that right to collect taxes, direct taxes, the provincial, it is at provincial level, but the provinces derive to the nation, this right. And they have, this right is limited on the time. For example, income tax, the due date of income tax is December 2022. Of course, they are then at the end of our Congress extend that due date for 1, 2, or 3 years more. But in fact, now, December 2022 is the due date of the income tax, 31 of December. And then we have the provinces levels, and because we have the nation, and then we have provinces in our nation, and inside each province we are divided into municipalities, right? Which is the third level and the third type of taxation, which in fact is not tax, is more, is something that we are fighting in the justice, because provinces have, as I said, the right to collect taxes, but municipality, no taxes. They can collect contributions for rendering services, right? So each municipality have to supply services to the companies, and then they can collect money for those services. It's not in all the, it's not something that is respect for the municipality. They, at the end of the day, collecting taxes. But this is a challenge by the company. Sometimes judge gives their resolution in favor of company. In another, for political reasons, they give reason to the municipality. Okay. Well, what happened at the national level? Income tax. We have local taxpayer and foreign beneficiary. For local taxpayer, the taxable basis is under a worldwide basis. So you have to pay income tax for earnings get in Argentina and outside Argentina. The tax rate could vary between 25%, 30%, or 35%. This is the three types of rate we have. See? And this is according to the taxable basis, the amount of taxable basis. Of course, the expenses you can deduct from those incomes are those related to the taxable basis, the taxable income. You have income that are exempt from income tax. Of course, the expenses related to that exemption is not allowed. But some deductions are limited or subject to certain requirements. The most common is interest of loan, what the word known as thin capitalization. Well, of course, we have the same rule here. And how is this thin capitalization? Well, this limit is fixed as 30% of the taxable basis or a fixed amount, the measure of this. And there are some others situations in which you can be out of this rule. Then, for example, another common item is the know-how agreement or technical assistance agreement, which, although being developed outside Argentina, when they refer to things that will be happened into Argentina, and technology is transferred from abroad, or you have a technical assistance that is not provided locally. Well, they are regulated by a law called transfer of technology, and you have to comply with that rules. And if this technology is provided by related companies, first of all, it is subject to the payment. If companies, local companies, doesn't pay the amount of these services, well, okay, this company cannot deduct that amount until the payment is done. So this is one of limitation. And the second is transfer pricing rules. Of course, you need to comply with these transfer pricing rules, because if not, you have to make an adjustment, to introduce an adjustment in the income tax return, right? One interest point is the benefit introduced by our law in the merger or acquisition operation. Under certain circumstances, you can merge company without paying income tax, right? But the companies have to comply with certain requirements established by the law. And finally, income tax return should be submitted annually. The taxpayer have to submit an income tax return annually. There are other occasions in which the companies have to submit tax return in a different time of or different time, not annually, but it's a special occasion. Keep in mind that once a year you have to submit the tax return, income tax return. What happened with foreign beneficiaries? This is when foreign entities have incomes from Argentina, which is considered that an Argentine source, from an Argentine source. So those earnings have to pay income tax here in Argentina, but through withholding at source, as Dr. said. The tax rate depends on the type of activity that is developed for Argentina, right? And you have a presumed basis. The tax base is determined on a presumption base. This presumption is a percentage established by law, by the income tax law. In this operation, in this activity, of course, double taxation could appear because you have to pay taxes in Argentina, and you have to pay taxes in the country where the service is provided. So to avoid those double taxation, we have signed certain agreements with different countries. For example, Spain is one of the countries with which we Argentina signed an agreement to avoid double taxation. France is another one, Germany, Italy. In general, all European countries sign an agreement with Argentina. Part of the Latin American countries sign an agreement with Chile, Bolivia, Brazil, with Paraguay and Uruguay. In Uruguay, just coming to force recently one, and Paraguay we haven't. Mexico is another country which entered into an agreement with Argentina recently too. United States, we don't have any agreement with them. And of course, the withhold can be performed by the bank who make the payment outside, or by the debtor or the local company if they send the money abroad or choose to make the withhold after sending the payment abroad, right? Good. Two very important aspects that is making or having more important lately is transfer pricing and other obligations related to operations between related companies. Transfer pricing. Transfer pricing, it's mandatory to prepare or at least to analyze when parent companies located abroad make operations with the local company, an Argentine company with the parent company established in another country, whatever it is. But there are two other situations in which this analysis is important to make or to keep in mind and check the amount or the value of this operation, which are companies located in countries with null or low taxation, in the past tax haven, right? And it was defined by our law what it means by null or low taxation. This is a country that have a percentage of income tax, rate of income tax, less than 15%. Where is this 15% come from? It comes from the calculation of 60% of the minimum rate. Remember that our minimum rate is 25%, as I commented before. Okay, the 60% of 25% tax rate, this is the 50% that is fixed as the top or minimum tax rate allowed for our law to consider that country as null or low taxation country. In the past, a tax haven country. And companies located in countries that do not sign a cooperation agreement with Argentina. What cooperation is referring to this agreement? Well, fiscal information. Fiscal information. These countries, when Argentina asks information from someone or some commerce or activity or whatever, this country have to provide that information. No excuses is admitted for not giving the information. You sign disagreement, you have to give me the information. The other things that is important to keep in mind is other tax obligation, which are formal obligation. These are country by country report, complying with the master file when correspond, and the affidavit of tax planning. Yeah, there's three last points have been established in the recently past, approximately 3 years ago to now, right? These are very important and it's related with the transfer pricing rule. So they are linked and need to work together for not making any mistake that could put the companies in trouble, right? Well, I don't know how I am with the time. I think we have time. Okay, the other national tax is the VAT or value added tax. Of course, this VAT tax operations performed locally inside Argentina, right? This is an objective tax. This tax operations, not individuals, not corporations, operations, right? From operating with goods or operating with services. Important, export operation is not live with this tax, right? They are tax exempt. But it is a law to recover the tax paid in the purchases of goods or services that is included in the goods or services exported, right? The tax rate is 21% for the most common operation. We have several tax rates according to the different activities. For example, energy have 27%, or agricultural activities, some agricultural activities are taxed with 10.5%, right? Sorry. It was to the end, and we are not in the end now. Value added tax. Okay. How this tax work? The tax applies on all sales operation, right? All sales operation. The companies need to include in their invoices the 21% of the percentage that correspond into the invoice. Yeah, you have the sales amount plus VAT amount. You have the total amount of that invoice. That amount is the VAT amount on sales constitute the fiscal debit. But you have the same tax when you purchase, when you buy things or services. Okay, each company then have to liquidate the VAT as debit, fiscal debit, less the VAT paid in the purchase. The VAT paid in the purchase is called fiscal credit. So the difference between debit and credit, fiscal debit and fiscal credit, is the amount of VAT you have to pay to our fiscal authority. Maybe, for example, if you have more purchases than sales in 1 month, maybe you reduce the balance in favor to you, which can be used in the following month, right? You are not, the companies don't lose that amount. Just they can use it in the following month. Then we have several collection regions, withholding or perceptions. All this withholding and perception can be applied against the final figures of the tax, right? Fiscal debit less fiscal credit is amount result in an amount that companies have to pay to our fiscal authority, right? Okay. Against that balance in favor of the fiscal authority, you can apply this withholding and perceptions amount, which of course is performed by your supplier or your client. Withholding is made by supplier and perception is client, sorry, withholding is made by client and perception is made by the buyers or suppliers, sorry. Well, point I explained that. Companies, the third most important tax that applies on corporation is the tax on personal assets. The same that individuals have to pay and explained a minute ago, right? What does it mean? And why companies have to pay this tax on personal assets? Because our law presumes that behind all companies is an individual, wherever it is. So all local companies which shareholders are companies located abroad or individuals. These situations make that local company have to pay this tax on behalf of those individuals, right? So the companies have to pay again on behalf of the individuals that work as shareholders on their equity, the 0.5% of this tax of their equity, right? This is this tax on personal assets. In fact, this is a tax that companies can claim to their shareholders to reimburse the funds paid by this tax. This is a company decision or group of the decision of the group to reimburse these funds or not. Pass now to the second level, which is provincial taxes. The more important tax at the provincial level is the turnover tax. What is this turnover tax? This turnover tax applies on sales again, but the rate is low in comparison with the VAT, and it works directly on sales and each level of the operation, right? This tax is liquidated based on the sales performed by each company, and it is not reduced by the turnover tax paid in the previous stage, right? It's more completely different. Why? Because this tax is set up by each or put in force by each province. So it's not possible to reduce the turnover tax of one province with the taxes paid in another. So each province leave their sales or the sales performed in that jurisdiction and pay to the fiscal authority the resulting amount. Of course, each province sets the rates applicable according to the activities performed by each company, right? As well as the exemption set up for the convenience activity, or they want to grant it benefit to one sector. Here, collection region is setting for two, as in the national level, right? So, as you can imagine, the 24 jurisdictions set up different type of collection regime according to the activity. The point is that the activity performed in each province could be pushed to pay, or there are some situations in which it's hard to collect the taxes. That is why the provinces set up collection regime, transferring the obligation of collecting taxes to the companies directly, to help fiscal authority to collect taxes. We have a special way to liquidate this tax when companies work in more than two jurisdictions. For example, you can work in the province of Córdoba and in the province of Buenos Aires. So as each province is entitled of collecting this turnover tax. Okay, the company is just only one, which work in two jurisdictions, in my example. So how can this company share or divide their income, its income, to pay turnover tax in each jurisdiction, in the province of Córdoba and in the province of Buenos Aires? Well, we have an agreement, yeah, in which, following that procedures, you can establish an index that let companies to share the incomes obtained on a monthly basis into the amount of or the quantity of provinces in which they are working. Each company is working. I don't know if I am unclear. I heard silence. I don't know if all of this is clear. Please interrupt me if you need some clarification about each point or one point. Right?
Thank you, Javier. I think it's very interesting and it's familiar to what happens in Spain. Do you, as for the individual income tax you have in Argentina, do you have a different tax rate for salaries and for capital gains, for instance, or for dividends?
Yes, we have different tax rates. Individuals, which doesn't work for companies, because you have individuals that is depends on companies, and you have individuals that work by their own. They are their own employer. For example, people that provide services as accountants, lawyers, etc. They have to list all the income that they have, and it was divided in 4 stages or 4 categories. After join all those categories, you have a final amount, which is introduced in a table that vary from 5% to 35%. But apart from that, you have income tax coming from capital gains or dividends, which is taxed separately but this taxed separately. This is income tax too, but the way, the manner to liquidate this tax is different, it's apart. It's included in the same tax return, but it's far. Which is, in the case of capital gain, maybe 15%. According to the operation, it's not so easy, but in general, it's 15%, or dividends are taxed at the rate of 7%, right?
Okay.
And they are included in a separate tax return. It's income tax too, but in a separate forms, right? Which is called here impuesto cedular. I don't know why our Congress decided to put it in a separate way, but they decided that, and it's a different tax return to be submitted by each individual. And of course, capital gains in general, it's included in the second category, as we call here. Okay? Are incomes from second category, right? And it's included in the general income. Our other capital gains is included in the general income and tax at the tax rate of 5% to 35%, according with the total amount of earnings got in a year. I don't know if I was clear, Tomas. I tried to summarize.
Yeah, it's also familiar to me.
It's familiar for you? Okay,
Yeah.
you have to pay taxes here in Argentina?
No, not yet.
No, of course.
And,
Not yet. Oh,
Hi everyone. This is Marcus.
hi, Marcus. We have been
Yeah.
working in the past. How are you?
Fine, and you? It's just most of the companies that want to establish new business in different countries, they want to know if they gonna have taxes over their dividends. Some countries you don't have it, like in Brazil, you don't have income tax over dividends. But this is a question that always come out when we speak with the potential customer, potential client. They ask us about it. So I think that's the reason that I think Tomas is asking about that. I think so. But to us, it's also important. If a client wants to establish a company in different countries, they want to know about the income tax over the dividends. So,
well, this is something that was going and back in Argentina, the taxation on dividends. Individuals are taxed, companies are taxed too, and more or less it's 7%. But in the case of Brazil, you can apply the agreements to avoid double taxation. We let company to avoid of paying taxes in both countries. If not, of course, it's taxed dividends when you send it abroad with a 7% too. And of course, if you can use this to pay to include in the income tax return is locally, and you have to take it as payment in account. If not, it's a definite income tax, right? But it was something that goes and back again with the taxation. It's very recent, the payment of income tax on dividends, right? And you have different ways of taxing, but this is for another because it's a little long to explain how it works, right? As well as dividends collected by local company, the treatment of these dividends is different for companies located in Argentina. Because of course they try not to tax twice, but it's different. It is another way to liquidate the income tax return on dividends.
Javier, I have one question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was very, very thorough, a lot of details. You explained the the labor law, company law, and all the tax aspects. From the point of foreign investors, you know, coming from foreign countries, what would you say? What are the main advantages to come and to invest in Argentina? Are there any incentives?
Again, it was freezing.
Yeah, what are the main advantages for foreign investors to come to Argentina and to set up a company? For example, are there any tax subsidies or any incentives from state, you know, besides, you know, all the tax, you know, measures that you already explained? Is there anything that will attract investors to come to Argentina?
We usually have some incentive for some areas or activities. Now the most incentive area is the IT technology. We have a local law trying to develop that activities, reducing the tax rate, for example, of income tax and other local benefits to those companies. Here we call economía del conocimiento. Now in economy law, if I have to translate this law, which include a lot of activities, and if you develop those activities here in Argentina, you can reduce the income tax rate. Of course, you can develop different activity, but if among all those activities includes this economic knowing, for example, developing new software, or you biotechnology, or well, the list is very long. So you can benefit from some incentive taxes, among others benefit, right? More benefit credits, more benefit loans, possibility to establish in some part. You have this incentive as national as provincial level.
Okay.
Not in all the provinces, but it varies. In the rest of the activity, now really we have not more incentive, but one of the main points that Argentina have signed a lot of agreement to avoid double taxation with a lot of countries, mainly the European country. Look, here in Latin America with Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, Bolivia, that lets company sending money abroad for different items, for example, interest, for example, royalties, for example, making business here, applying the 7th article, which is a benefit company that more or less, or in the most cases, the state entitled to leave this enterprise ending is where the provider is located. The company that provides that services is located. So it's in Argentina's interest for the using of this agreement, which in fact now is our fiscal authority set up a formal obligation of informing which are the performing the tax planning that each company foresee for the future that could be reduced the taxable basis for income tax purposes. Like the same in the rest of the country, because this is a rule coming from OCDE, the international entity. Okay, it comes from one of their direction. I understand that, for example, in countries like Brazil or even in the United States, have different sectors or part of the country that foresee additional benefit. Really, I don't know how it works, which push company to set up in those areas instead of coming to Argentina, for example. But we haven't any one of them. We used to have it in some provinces, but very long in the past, many, many years ago. Now we haven't any region like that. The interest, insist, is using that agreement to avoid double taxation, and this new law, which lets companies, technology company, set up in Argentina with that benefit. I'm right. Explain what you try
Yes,
to,
yes, that's excellent.
know?
Yeah, thank you, Javier. Thank you very much.
Okay.
If anyone else got any questions?
Well, closing this presentation. If someone have any additional question, because I am close to the end with the two more taxes. Okay, I go to the end. The other one is the stamp tax, which tax just for the existence of any contract, onerous contract. The percentage is more or less 1%, and is collected by provincial level, at the provincial level. And the last one is the security and hygienic contribution, which is, as I said, a contribution, not a tax, because this contribution needs to be as a result of the services provided by the municipality. Municipality cannot collect taxes. This causes here a lot of fights from companies with the municipalities that try to collect money for whatever, as it was a tax, but it doesn't. But okay, we have it. This is a remuneration for services provided by the municipality. The base can be varied. The way to fix the remuneration can be based on sales, employed personnel, occupied area, whatever item that each municipality see that is better to collect the money for the services that they provide. Well, we come to an end. We are at the end of this presentation. I don't know if you have any other questions about this very, 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 very brief summary of what is Argentina, what is the taxation in Argentina. Startup to come here. Marcus, Tomás, do you have any other question?
Not me, thank you. Thank you, Javier.
You're welcome.
No,
Tomás.
thank you, Javier. Thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome, Marcus.
presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Perfect.
I hope that it helps you if you need something in the future to work something in Argentina. And many thanks for assisting this presentation and give me the opportunity to explain what is Argentina.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
It's
you,
very good.
Javier.
It's very good to have those presentations. Of course, when we have a quotation client, for example, for Argentina, we're gonna reach you guys over there. But it's good to have some an overview of the country and how things work over there, and knowing that we have some support from a TGS member, that's very good to get started with a new company in Argentina. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks, Marcus. I agree with your opinion. I think we are a very nice and wide network to use this network for helping company and to get more companies for us, for the network, I mean. So it's very nice to work together. Really, for me, I have the opportunity to work with Marcus and with other companions in the rest of the red, and really is a very, very nice to work together. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Really.
And thank you, Javier, for your involvement and your time, because I know it's a time to prepare some presentation like that. And thank you to those who participate and ask questions during the presentation.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Have a good day and a good night. It depends where you are in the world. So thank you, everybody, and see you soon.